Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. So what qualities do you value most in the coach-mentor relationship?
Number one is honesty. Okay, the more honest people are, the quicker we get to the real issues and not the symptoms that we spoke about a moment ago. And the further we go and the quicker we get there. So honesty on both parties is absolutely key. And trust. So this goes both ways. It's a safe, non-judgmental place.
Yep.
Trust is earned. Trust isn't given instantly. It's something you build upon. I try to build trust before we start any sessions, so we've got a good foundation. And it's something that's demonstrated openly. And openness is the next one. Openness to change. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If you aren't ready to change, if you're not ready to go across the threshold to actually start the journey, it's not going to work. So you've got to have that within you. It's time. Now is the time. You may have been thinking about it for a while. This is the time to actually make it happen. This is time in your life. You're going to get past that sticking point and we're going to really go for it.
Yeah.
Bit of humor, let's be honest. Your joke here or there, a little bit of laughter where appropriate, makes the journey smoother for both people. And acceptance. Accepting that things are going to change and that you are going to change, the situation is going to change, and you are going to live that difference. And that's kind of the final part of all of this really is you've got to be ready to actually get out of that sticking point. You've got to be ready to move yourself or your business forward. Accept all of this, and then, if you've got all those qualities, it's going to absolutely fly.
Yeah. So would it be important to get I suppose the person would have to buy into accepting that they will need to change something, whatever that something is, but then also, because they're going to learn a lot through the coaching or mentoring or both, but then I suppose it gets to the stage where the individual's got to take action, right? If that then becomes a sticking point, they're saying yes all the way along, and they've got the intention, but then struggle with the taking action part. I'm sure you've got a remedy for that bit as well. But I suppose the taking action is where that's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah. And it isn't a case of, if we book a block of, say, 4 sessions, it isn't a case of you take action on the 4th session. At the end of every single session, if it's 1 session, 4 sessions, or we work together for a year, you are taking actions at the end of every single one of those sessions, because there will be findings, there will be breakthroughs. There will be different ways to approach things. There'll be different tools you could be using, different ways of communicating. There's a million different things we're going to have gone through that need and will be changing. So you've got to be ready for that. And change can be a bit painful. It can be a little bit, but it's practicing it and actually living it that then makes it easy. So everything is difficult until it becomes easy, and everything is easy when it's no longer difficult. I say that really often. And I think that's really key for us to get into that uncomfortable zone, push ourselves right into it. And after a while, it becomes easier and easier. It becomes normal, it becomes natural. And you're ready to grow again and again and again. And you keep on moving up and up. So, for me, I think acceptance all the way through, not just at the end of the session.
Yeah, brilliant. What's the expected duration of a coaching mentoring relationship? And I guess that would differ depending on the circumstances as well.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, this is something we're very clear about up front as well. So my sort of onboarding when I start working with someone is 15-minute. Right, what's the problem? What's the issues? Is it something I can fix or not? If I can't fix it, I'm very, very blunt about it. But what I will do is recommend or show you someone that can potentially fix it or solve your problem.
Okay.
We then move into the next session there'll be a little bit of homework for them to do, a bit of homework for me to do. We'll then look at different ways to maybe solve the problem and issues that they've got, and a program or a one-off session booking to do it.
Yep.
Some homework from that again, and then bang, into the actual paying session. So all of that's free to get us where we need to be, hit the power. So that then will be agreed before we even start how many sessions it will be. 1, 3, 4, 6 a year, or whatever you particularly need. So if you come to a problem, such as communication breakdown between teams, you'll probably sort that out in 1 session or 2 sessions.
Yep.
If you're looking for a mentor or a guide to kind of take you through future business growth, development, or moving into new markets, or create an ongoing relationship, this can last for months, and in some cases years, to be totally honest. But what you do tend to find in that situation is initially you'll have weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly meetings, But then over time, it becomes more of a reach in for a conversation and challenge every quarter, maybe every six
Yeah.
months, maybe
Yeah.
once a year. So again, it's kind of bespoke. It's really difficult to give a number. It depends on what you need as an individual. But what I do absolutely guarantee is it will be the minimum number possible to
Yep.
get the problem solved. I don't believe in self-perpetuating work. I believe in you coming to me to solve a problem. If I can solve it in one, we'll solve it in one. And that's me happy and that's you happy. It's not a case of, well, yeah, we've almost solved it in the first session. Let's put another session on, another session on. And I've seen people do that. And that's a little
Yeah.
bit, that's against my morals and my beliefs. And as you know very well, that's not how I act or
Absolutely.
wouldn't expect others to.
So each coachee or mentee will have a different set of circumstances, different problems, sticking points, different areas for development, and so you'll tailor your approach to their individual needs. How do you actually go about doing that, though? I mean, is there a set formula or process that you use, or?
Very much like when I said a moment ago, it's my onboarding process with anyone that I work with is a way of understanding what their needs and what their goals are for that individual.
Yeah.
So it is about, before we even start working together, having a really deep conversation around what the issue is, face to face or via Zoom. We'll look at if I can help to start off with. And then we look at what the problem that needs solving is, how many sessions may be needed. Then it's hung at both parties, and then we start working through it. So it is bespoke. There's not a one size fits all, but there is always a lot of conversations had before we start working together to make sure we've got the right match.
Yeah.
And we have got solutions that can solve the problems they've got.
Yeah. So in terms of senior executives, I mean, that's the sort of, the world that I live in these days with my executive search business. I think it's fair to say that many executives have probably at some point or either on an ongoing basis have experienced or utilized coaching and or mentoring, but there are some that don't get that opportunity and some that are maybe stepping up from a managerial role, where they might have had some development, but maybe they haven't had any formal coaching and mentoring. How does coaching and mentoring contribute to senior executive professional development?
That's an interesting point that you make about a lot of senior executives will have had coaching and mentoring in one way, shape, or form. Only 37% of senior executives have actually ever had a coach or mentor.
Wow, I thought it was quite a lot higher than that. That's surprising.
It really isn't in the UK.
Yeah.
And yet 97% of those that have said it's highly impactful and valuable and has made a big difference on their life, their world, and their businesses.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people, 37% have actually had one, but 97%, that's a big number. And I can back all of this up with statistics and research. We can reference this.
That's pretty compelling, isn't it? I mean, based on that, you'd think that every executive or manager would be, screaming out for coaching and or mentoring.
Well, I mean, you ask what can it do for the person? Right?
Yeah.
It's literally like bringing two brains to the boardroom.
Yeah.
You'll bring another executive with you in your pocket as your confidant. You're bringing that board level experience. So whenever you're approaching a challenge, you're being challenged by others around you, any company issues that sort of come along, you've got that second brain. So it's almost an unfair advantage for them to have in the boardroom.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the solutions there and then necessarily, but you can bring it back into your next session and we can then chew around it and bring challenge and bring positive challenge back into the board. So it gives you that space to think. It also gives you that different thinking to bring back into the business. So it changes what you are to a business really, really quickly. And it doesn't just help you, it helps those around you because the thinking is changing all the time. Another point as well is it's not just about senior executives, it is also about the business owners and CEOs.
Yep, absolutely.
84% of those have actually said that having a mentor helped them not have a massive cost. So having that safe space to chew through ideas and to bounce ideas and to have positive change brought to them has stopped them from falling over. And I think that's a really important thing here, because when you are at the very top, who do you reach to? Who do you talk to? If you are emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent, you'll reach out to your board and you'll reach out to peers around you. But a lot of people feel that they can't or they shouldn't. So they sit there, basically their own prisoner. So having someone like a mentor in place makes a big difference.
Yeah. So
Going back to individuals, sorry, I'm throwing some stats at you. I've been doing a bit of research on this. I knew you
go
would
on.
ask. A mentee is 5 times, okay, 5 times more likely to get promoted than their peers. Okay, so just have a think about that. If you had the opportunity to be 5 times more likely to be promoted, what does that mean to you? A, within your business, or B, within the business that you're looking to go into. You are going to be that person that comes with the solutions. You are going to be the person that comes with the different thinking. You're going to be the person that can take challenge and turn it around into something positive rather than maybe see it that's holding you back.
Yeah.
And 94% of employees stay longer at a company if they are being coached and mentored.
So it's giving a real edge, isn't it?
You're going to stay there. Exactly. I mean, what does that sound like to you? What would that look like to any of your clients? 94% of employees staying with them longer. What would that do to their recruitment costs? What would that do to all of their turnover of staff morale, well-being? There's just some massive benefits there.
Yeah. And it will also help attract people in the first place, won't it? If they're growing businesses and they need extra, managers, executives, or further on down the line. I think becoming an employer of choice is becoming more and more important for any business these days. So the whole, coaching and mentoring thing, giving individuals this edge. That's the sort of word that's coming into my mind at the moment. It's giving you that sort of that edge to be, ahead of the game and maybe ahead of your competitors, colleagues, for example. If you're looking for promotion and development, it's just giving you that edge that you might not necessarily find yourself. You might not be able to sharpen yourself to a sharp enough point. So it does seem like a no-brainer to me when you put it like that.
Well, that's also why we're set up the joint venture. Let's be honest. At the end of the day, I'm sure we'll be talking more about that, but it's making sure we can help companies and individuals have that edge.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the what's involved from a an input point of view from the mentee or coachee. What sort of level of commitment and effort is usually expected for the sort of coaching and mentoring relationship.
Okay, well, you're not going to expect this one. It's not always going to be comfortable. It's going to be hard work. It will create more work or it creates less work. So let's be honest about that, because we've got to sort out the problems. We've got to find resolutions. We've got to do things differently. So initially, the commitment is that you have the capacity, or you will make the capacity to have a little bit higher workload. Now, it sounds counterproductive because a lot of the reason people come to me is they've got an unmanageable workload. So I'm very, very clear up front. A little bit of pain now, a lot of gain going forward. So that is the bare minimum. Obviously, the length of the hours that we work together is a bare minimum, but that's really the starting point. I do say, and you've heard me say this many times, don't make me a sandwich when we work together.
Yeah.
Make me a pizza, but don't make me a sandwich when we work together. So before we actually have a session, there's homework. I've mentioned it a lot. Okay, there's lots of assessments and ways to understand how you like to communicate and how you like to be communicated to.
Yeah.
Which is great for personal awareness and self-awareness. It's also great for understanding why maybe you aren't getting on with other people in the business or why relationships aren't working, and how to adapt to be emotionally more intelligent, to let them have their thinking, understanding as well. So we do a lot of work on that before we start anywhere at all. And it also makes the sessions a lot smoother because it helps me understand how best to communicate with you as an individual and how best to work with you to get the most effective response and results for you. During the actual sessions, just be 100% present. Okay, be honest and upfront. The more you give, the more explosive and transformative it will be. So the commitment is, once you're there, everything else is off. It isn't a case of, oh, I've got a quick phone call to make, or oh, I've got to go and do this. No, literally, if we booked an hour, don't think you're leaving after 3/4 of an hour. And don't book back-to-back meetings if possible. Okay, it's not always possible, but don't if you don't have to, because if we're making massive progress, the odds are on we may well overrun. Okay, you've booked an hour with me, but it would be disingenuous of me if at the 50 minutes session we're about to have a massive breakthrough, at that point of finding the solution, I'm not going to break it off to say, right, we'll start again next week or next month or whenever we meet up next. It will be, we need to roll this a little bit further. So leave a little bit of breathing space for it to potentially overrun. And also to take time to reflect afterwards, to go straight into another meeting straight after it. The brain is absorbing a lot of this great information and different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And it needs that little bit of breathing space. So if possible, I'd say If you can, get out for a walk, whether it's around the car park or whether it's out in nature or out in your garden or somewhere, just reflect on it. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour if you've got it. And also just think through some of the notes that you've taken through that meeting. So you've got it. So it really starts to sink in straight away.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And one of my pet hates is back-to-back meetings. As a business owner, I don't book back-to-back meetings. I never have done when I've worked for other businesses either. I've worked with a lot of people that have done that, and I've seen them tear assing around, out of one meeting into another, out of that one into another. How can you be fully present in your next meeting if you've still got baggage in your head from the meeting you've just come out of? I just think it's crazy. And, people just need to slow down a little bit. It's just, it's counterproductive. So,
yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And, I have been guilty of that in the past. I think we all have. You're working, you are on the wheel spinning it. But what I've learned to do through my career is actually book out blocks before meetings and after meetings. So my diary is booked. Gives me the correct time before, so I'm going in sharp and ready rather than with just paperwork or a laptop or whatever and starting when I hit. And also afterwards, it gives me that little bit of decompress and time to get ready for the next one. Stick half an hour in your diary either side, or run 45-minute meetings, not hour meetings. You've got the hour. You don't need the whole hour most of the time. You've got a spare 15 minutes at the end. There are lots of ways to not run on the wheel, and that's kind of more work to start off with, less work when we work together eventually, as I touched on earlier.
Yeah. And that's probably a podcast topic all on its own, how to run effective meetings. It's a proper bone of contention with a lot of people. So let's park that one for now. And we will definitely circle back to that at some point over the coming weeks and months with more of these leadership podcasts. So okay, well, thanks for that, Jon. Now, I was going to ask you about confidentiality because for me, it's a given. If you're talking to somebody, whether they're an executive or a manager or somebody on the shop floor, if you're trying to help somebody and they're coming to you with their scenario, their challenges, their problems, their fears, worries, whatever it might be, there is that trust element that you mentioned earlier, and that's vital, and you've got to have that on both sides, of course. But it certainly at the executive end, I mean, you've got to have confidentiality all the way through. But when you've got real business sensitive situations that could impact maybe a company going down the pan or surviving or having to lay off people or grow the business, whatever it might be, or there's some really sensitive financial implications. How do you actually ensure that there is that total confidentiality? I mean, in my business, I get candidates to sign NDAs if I'm talking about a confidential search assignment. And I do offer, to my clients as well, if they would like me to sign an NDA about their business before we, commence a project together. Now, I've never been taken up on that once yet because there is that trust. But how do you deal with that whole confidentiality piece?
There's two or three parts to that, and completely same as you just said there. The NDA is a pretty easy one to start off with if there isn't that level of trust or if there is that level of exposure. A lot of these companies, a lot of these people that I'm talking to and working with, they are running companies, they are running divisions, they are sitting on the board. So the problems they are facing are high level, top level, and inevitably expensive. So that's why they've called someone in, because they've got to a point they can't get any further with it. So I'm looking at the financial records of the business. I'm looking at the recruiting plans. I'm looking at the layoff plans. I'm looking at everything in between with them. So more than happy to sign an NDA. I've obviously got my own as well.
Yep.
It's a completely safe environment, a confidential space between a coach, mentor, and the coachee, mentee. Okay, that is a straight line. Is that trust? If there's any doubt about that level of trust or that belief or that commitment with the individual, walk away straight away, because otherwise things are held back. So for me, if you've employed me yourself, everything stays 100% in the room, like everything completely. So if you are an executive that wants to work with me, everything's between you and I, and that's the growth plan that we work on. If you are a company employing me to help a new employer or a new senior executive or a senior executive you've got there, then we have a brokering meeting. Okay. So in that, we agree what we're working on, what desired outcome and specific goals are. and the measures that we're working towards in that coaching and mentoring session. And that brokering session is done with most likely HR, the head of HR, the direct line manager, and the individual. So everyone knows what we're working on, what the plans are. That's the top line, that's the top level, all bought into, all signed off on. So that's effectively the contract that's signed off on. Okay. That will be reported back on a top level, updates created by the coachee stroke mentee, not me. So updates from that will agree, obviously, to make sure it's in line with what we're doing. They will then publish that themselves back into the business. So that is the confidentiality, that what they do or don't want to share, or they don't feel comfortable with. That's safe and confidential. How can you expect someone to really open up and be honest if there's a fear that what you're doing with them is going to be thrown out and aired at any point to their direct line manager or to HR? Or you can't, you won't, and you can't trust someone, and you shouldn't trust someone if there's even any slight risk of that. So yeah, and really any other concerns or questions that might be raised in the session are only shared if, especially requested by the coachee stroke mentee. Otherwise, we work together, they stay there. And sometimes I am asked to raise concerns and issues because they don't feel comfortable having those conversations. And obviously, the best case scenario is I work with them to have those conversations. But if there's an immediate fix that needs to happen instantly, there are times when I have had to take conversation out of that room and maybe have gentle conversations further around in the business to make sure that support's happening or resources put in place to mitigate risks or problems. But again, it's different for every individual, but the trust and the level of privacy doesn't change.
Okay, so we've sort of spoken on a number of different levels around the mentee, the coachee. What about the organizations then that are, inviting you in or have a need for coaching and mentoring? What are the main sort of benefits to the business or the organization itself? Sort of top level, overarching benefits of coaching and mentoring.
Well, get ready. I'm going to hit you with loads of stats on this one.
Go on.
Just because I think it's important to back up a lot of what we're talking about here with actual hard evidence and numbers, that this is what it does do, this is what it can do for businesses if it's done correctly. So it's just as transformative as it is for an individual, it can be, and it is for businesses. It brings different thinking, different approaches, new strategies, improved problem solving, different processes, better communication skills. Developing high-performing teams, getting them past roadblocks, and really it's getting them past their competition or through their competition potentially, and helping embed them with their clients and their customers and building those relationships. So all of this is the sort of thing that we work towards, and all of those points I've just mentioned are different blocking points and sticking points that I have and I do work on with people to move them through it. So again, the benefits to a company is, what is it you are stuck on? What is it that's holding your company back? And if you don't know, we can work on finding that as well. But that is the benefit to you as you and your company. And that, for me, is the exciting part about it. I can go to 3 company owners in the same industry, have the same problem, but they'll need 3 different solutions. So every time it's slightly different depending on where they are on their journey and the resource and support and what they've done thus far to try and get past the problem. So every single one is different, and every individual and every business is different. And this is a huge generalization, but the US are way ahead of us in coaching and mentoring. I'll take the huge generalization. 77% of the Fortune 500 companies have basically said that coaching and mentoring is in place and it's having a significant impact on their business. 100% of Fortune 50 companies have it in place. So just think about that. The most influential, the most sought after companies in the States, 100% of the top 50 have coaching and mentoring in place. That for me says something.
It speaks volumes.
And also 96% of companies employ an executive coach, so they would repeat the process again. So you bring someone into problem solve, you bring someone in to help bring someone into the business and to onboard them, or you help get the board to become more cohesive. It isn't an ongoing role a lot of the time. It is a come in, a fix, and then move on. But they will repeat it because they've had such a great success from it. I've got 2 more to throw you, and then I'll stop on the stats for a bit. 89% of people who have been mentored will go on to mentor.
Yes, I've heard that one.
Okay. That for me is huge. What does that mean? What does it, just think about that for a second. That means it was successful for you. It helped you. It meant you want to be able to do that for other people.
Yeah.
What a great leader you are, by the way. It also means that all those silos of knowledge within your organization open. You're not just going up and down, you're mentoring and coaching sideways potentially. You are also, and I love this one, you are reverse mentoring. So you are
Yep.
bringing fresh talent into your business and you're learning from them, because there are generations that know a heck of a lot more about technology, social media, marketing, and it's changing daily. Bringing those in and learning from them is
Yeah.
actually helping develop senior executives as well. So yeah, there's a real, once the knowledge and the sharing starts in a business, it's just, it opens, it transforms the business and the way it works, the well-being of the individuals, the retention of staff. The list goes on. I mean, literally, I could find 100 things to give you reasons, but
Yeah.
the last thing I'll leave, okay, is on this particular point. If for any other reason you're not sure about doing it as a business, or you're feeling that, is it worth me doing it? 19% of companies who employ coaches and mentors saw a 50 times return on their investment. If you're bobbing accounts and you're thinking about this right now, 50 times your investment.
Yeah.
And even the average is a 788% return on the investment.
Wow.
Okay. So if you're on the fence about it from a commercial perspective,
Yeah.
it literally pays for itself 50-fold for 19% of companies.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, yeah, there are so many ways this pays for itself. We're working with companies as we speak, onboarding. The difference that can make there speaks for itself. Retaining that person and growing them and developing them,
Yeah.
rather than the cost of replacing. What was the statistic the other day? What's the cost of actually replacing a senior executive? I heard it's anywhere between 2 to 3.5 times their gross salary in downtime and in retraining time and in recruiting and etc. Knock around a business. If you're doing proper onboarding, if you're doing coaching and mentoring to help unblock issues within the business and help individuals grow and develop, that cost is just basically goes straight onto your bottom line effectively.
Yeah. There's quite a few stats that I've seen on that, cost of replacing people. But whatever the numbers are, I mean, a number's just a number, but I think there's a lot of hidden costs there as well that people, don't always factor in, such as, you get an executive hire wrong. They're not onboarded properly. They're not communicated to in the right way. They're not sort of developed, supported. It sends out, ripples into the market. You lose face with your customers. You've got a reputation in the business, particularly if you're a leading business or even an up and coming business. Doesn't really matter. There's the morale within the business. So the fact that an executive hasn't made it can have a dramatic effect on the profits of the business, the staff turnover lower on down the organization. So your productivity will take a hit. Your productivity takes a hit, so your customers are unhappy. As I said, the reputation in the market, it's all of these things. It can affect your sales, your sales turnover, your profitability. There's so many things. It's not just the cost of we got to go out and recruit again. That's going to cost us money, so we're going to have to maybe pay a bit more to get a better person. Yes, these are all basic things, but it's that wider knock-on effect that you can't really put a figure on, but it should be added on to the usual cost of rehiring. So get it right in the first place. Develop your people. This is a recruiter. I'm a headhunter. So, I'm sort of selling against my services in a way, because I'm thinking if you treat your people well, you look for the right people in the first place, you onboard them, you support them, you develop them, you're going to have less churn, and you're going to save yourselves money, from recruitment costs alone, but you're going to make it easier, finding people in the future. When you do look to recruit through whatever method you use, you can have people, hopefully breaking down the door to come and work for you because you're such a great organization. So that this is probably another podcast in itself as well.
Easily. I mean, don't even get me on the whole well-being side of things. And if you truly believe about well-being in an organization,
absolutely,
why are you not doing this? It's just, it becomes once you've done it, once you understand it, it becomes bit of a no-brainer, to be honest. But it's actually getting to the threshold and taking that step to go across the line to start doing it.
Absolutely.
And a great point you made the other day when we were talking. Okay, you're advertising for a new senior executive. You are putting on that job spec that you are including coaching and mentoring for them for a duration of X, Y, Z. What does that say to them? It says you value them already before they're even there. It says you're looking to carry on growing and developing them. It also says you've got an environment of openness and growth. It's not a case of bringing them in to burn them. You're bringing them in to actually help them grow them further and get more from them to help you. It's a win-win. It's just crazy not to be advertising things like that when you're looking, because that will pull talent out of other businesses. People that aren't happy, if they see you doing that, it shows that your culture, along with all of your other pillars as well, obviously, it shows that your culture within the organisation is one to jump to, not from.
Okay, so that wraps up today's episode of Insights for Manufacturing Leadership. Hope you've enjoyed our discussion. Thanks again to Jon. Thank you for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.